In July 1965, the first production IFA W50L trucks rolled off the assembly line at the Ludwigsfeld plant. The cab's smooth, rounded lines, curved panoramic windshield, large radiator grille, and neat flatbed body gave this cab-over truck a distinctive design, which really set it apart from most trucks of the socialist bloc at the time, especially the hooded models, which were unimpressive both in terms of technical specs and comfort. But despite its rather progressive cab-over design, which was at the height of popularity in the automotive world at that time, people's attitude toward this vehicle was mixed. Some drivers, because of the letter L in the name, which either stood for the city of Ludwigsfeld or simply indicated the type of vehicle, Losten, meaning cargo, called this truck by the feminine name Ella or Elachka, respected it, and considered it an honor to be behind the wheel of their favorite. Others, however, felt a bit more indifferent toward it, and some witty drivers from the USSR, where the IFA trucks were supplied in large numbers starting from the 1970s, even joked that it was Germany's revenge for Stalingrad. But why did the IFA receive such drastically opposite reviews? And how, despite everything, did it manage to achieve the status of a true legend of East German automotive industry? The answers to these questions, along with plenty of other interesting facts about this extraordinary vehicle, are coming up in our next segment. So don't leave our channel. And while you're watching, let us know in the comments if you feel any nostalgia for classic trucks from the past. And which ones would you like to see back on the roads again? Alright, let's get going. The need for new, modern trucks arose in East Germany as early as the mid-1950s, when the vehicle resources created by the automotive companies of the once united Germany were gradually running out. A particularly important role in the reconstruction and development of East Germany's automotive industry was assigned to the Association of Vehicle Manufacturers, Industrieverband Fahrzeugbau, or simply IFA, which was established in 1948, a year before the proclamation of the German Democratic Republic, and brought together most of the state-owned East German automotive enterprises. In fact, this organization functioned as the automotive ministry, overseeing the entire automotive industry of the country. It was at one of the automotive plants that was part of the IFA Association where the first prototype of a cab-over-engine truck was developed, which would later become the famous IFA W50L. To be more specific, this event took place in the early 1960s at the Ernst Grube automotive plant in the city of Werdau, which had been founded back in 1898 as the Saxon wagon building plant. After the end of World War II, the plant ended up in the Soviet occupation zone and was nationalized in 1948. Already in the early 50s, the renamed enterprise was reoriented from manufacturing railcars to producing trucks. Here, mainly hooded models were produced, developed at the Horch plant in Zwickau, which were based on pre-war designs by the Wammen Company. These were heavy 6-ton trucks, the IFA H6, and military all-wheel drive models, the IFA G5, with a 6x6 wheel configuration. In 1958, the heavy hooded H-series trucks made way on the assembly line for the medium-duty H3 models, which, after modernization and increased payload capacity, received a new name, S4000. And already at the beginning of the 1960s, the Werdau plant began its own program to develop promising cab-over-engine models, which, since the mid-1950s, had been gaining more and more popularity and spreading across the global automotive market. After all, the design of a truck with a cab-over-engine layout allowed for the most efficient use of the vehicle's chassis length, increasing its payload capacity without the need to extend the overall length of the vehicle itself, which in many countries is often strictly limited by law. The first experimental cab-over-engine truck created in Werdau was the W45 model. Here, the letter index indicated the place of production, Werdau, and the numbers in the name referred to the truck's payload capacity in quintals, in this case 45 quintals or 4.5 tons. Later, after some minor modifications, the trucks, which received the new name W50L, were transferred to the plant in Ludwigsfeld, where in July 1965, mass production of the IFA W50L began. This is a 2-axle, medium-duty truck with a cab-over engine design. From the outside, the cab looked quite massive and was rather tall. However, there wasn't actually that much space inside. Almost all the space between the driver and the passenger was taken up by the engine cover, under which was a 4-cylinder diesel engine with swirl chambers, a 6-liter displacement, and an output of 100 horsepower. This power unit was a more powerful version of the 90 horsepower diesel engine from the S4001 truck. In 1967, the trucks began to be equipped with a new 4-cylinder V-type diesel engine with direct fuel injection, built under MAN license, with a displacement of 6.5 liters and an output of 125 horsepower. A distinctive feature of this engine was its ability to operate on just 2 cylinders. This fuel-saving mode would automatically activate when operating at low RPMs or when the engine overheated, which allowed for significant fuel savings. The truck's 5-speed gearbox was housed in a separate casing from the engine, which was mounted to the frame under the body platform. The engine's torque was transmitted to the gearbox via a drive shaft. The separate placement of the gearbox made repairs and removal much easier. The truck boasted a substantial ground clearance of 30 centimeters. This was achieved thanks to a unique design of the final drive, whose function was actually performed by 2 separate reduction gears. These were housed in casings at the ends of the rear drive axle beam. Such a design made it possible to do away with a single final drive. A huge housing located in the center of the axle could have significantly reduced the ground clearance. At the buyer's request, the trucks could be equipped with interwheel differential locking mechanisms. All-wheel drive military versions, which were also produced in Ludwigsfeld, were equipped with a transfer case with a demultiplier and a differential lock mechanism. The W50L had a dependent leaf spring suspension, complemented at the front by telescopic hydraulic shock absorbers and an anti-roll bar. A power steering system was only installed on the all-wheel drive versions of the trucks. The braking system was of the drum type, with an independent hydraulic drive for the front and rear wheels. A pneumatic booster helped reduce the effort required on the brake pedal. In addition, the trucks were also equipped with an engine brake, a special valve installed between the intake manifold and the muffler. When the accelerator pedal was released, this valve would activate and block the exhaust gases, thereby providing engine braking. This additional ability to brake with the engine was especially useful when driving routes on mountain switchbacks, since it allowed for significant savings on brake pad wear. The cab-over-engine layout made it possible to significantly reduce the curb weight, which was only 4 tons 600 kilograms, and increase the payload capacity to 5 tons 200 kilograms. In addition, the truck could tow a trailer with a total weight of 9 tons. The vehicle's maximum speed was 80 kilometers per hour. The truck consumed 17 liters of fuel per 100 kilometers. Based on the main flatbed truck, the Ludwigsfeld plant also produced more than 100 different modifications. There was no sector of the East German economy where these trucks were not used. They worked on construction sites, in the fields, in municipal services, and in various agencies and organizations. They even served in the military. Among them were models with extended wheelbases, double cabs, mobile workshops, refrigerated vans, dump trucks, including all-wheel drive versions, tractor units, as well as fire trucks, which formed the backbone of the vehicle fleet for most fire departments in the GDR. Truck cranes with a total lifting capacity of 10 tons were also mounted on the W50L chassis. Of course, like any vehicle, the IFA had its own advantages and disadvantages. That is, its pros and cons. The advantages included good driving performance, off-road capability, compactness, reliability, excellent maneuverability, and a sufficient level of comfort. As for the drawbacks, most of them were learned from drivers, who often complained about certain inconveniences when operating these vehicles. Because it was impossible to tilt the cab, the main access to the engine was through a hatch in the engine compartment, which was located in the cab between the passenger and driver seats, making repairs more difficult. And during a major engine overhaul, the engine was removed through the front cover with the radiator grille. Another problem was the poor warming up of the engine at low temperatures. But these drawbacks were not that significant compared to the advantages of this model. And the best proof of that was the wide export geography of this truck. It was supplied to most countries of the Eastern Bloc, as well as to countries in Asia, Africa, and South America. One of the main buyers of this model was the Soviet Union. The first batch of vehicles, totaling 4,000 units, arrived in the USSR in 1971. Subsequently, the supply of this car only increased and continued until 1987. By 1985, there were already 40,000 of these vehicles in the Soviet Union, but almost all of them were limited to just two basic versions, the W50L flatbed truck, which could be equipped with an additional trailer, and the W50LK dump truck with three-way unloading. But be that as it may, time went on, and by the mid-80s, the vehicle was already considered morally outdated. And that's completely understandable, since throughout its entire production run, it underwent only two changes. In 1969, when a new parking brake was installed. And once more in 1973, when the truck received a new steering mechanism. That's why in 1987, a new all-wheel drive IFA model was developed. The L60, which was basically still the W50L, just with a few changes. A new 6-cylinder engine with a 9.1-liter displacement and 180 horsepower, a new tilting 3-seat cab manufactured under Volvo license, and a 4-speed synchronized gearbox with a 2-speed splitter. In addition, the truck received planetary wheel reduction gears on the drive axles, a pneumatic clutch booster, and an electro-pneumatic actuator for the interaxle differential lock mechanism. But on November 9, 1989, the Berlin Wall fell, and just a year later, on October 3, 1990, Germany was reunified. Soon after, the Ludwigsfeld plant returned to its former owner, Daimler-Benz. For a while, the new owners tried to update the L60 model. There were even attempts to install a cab from the Mercedes-Benz LN2 truck family on it, but these efforts didn't achieve any particular success, and by the mid-1990s, the company had switched to producing its own models. In total, over 25 years of production, about 600,000 IFA W50L and IFA L60 trucks rolled off the Ludwigsfeld factory assembly line. Many of them are still around even decades after production stopped. You could still spot them on the roads of many countries, living witnesses to the era of German-style socialism.